Hey everyone, it's Daniel Diamond. Today's just a perfect day for a hike in the fall. I guess you could say today is sort of an Indian summer day, and just going to go down to the hiking trails and just kind of been building up a lot of momentum for some more epiphanies, insights. Just kind of do one of those ones where I just talk in a moment. I'll tell you, I just love the weather today. It's very inspiring. The sun is just perfect. Sort of puts me in a mystical kind of vibe. It's just really perfect and inspiring. And I'll tell you, one of the best things we can do is get out in nature. It's something a lot of us unfortunately neglect. We get so caught up in the drama of the politics and the news and the media. We get really wrapped up, kind of absorbed into the internet, the movies and Netflix and all this kind of stuff. And it serves its place, but we got to find. I think definitely more people could find more balance in their life. And I go walking around and I always see the same people. It's like, for some reason, there's some people that just always go for walks, always get out in nature. They're very active, but it's always the same people. I never really see anyone new. So it's just for some reason, different people feel more like that need to get out and get fresh air, go for walks, get in nature. I think it's sort of an all intrinsically a need per se we all have. I mean, not that we need it to survive, but in a sense we do. I mean, just getting out in the woods, going down the trails, getting fresh air is something that people just think that is a waste of time, but it's so good for your health. And I'm a very meditative person, so simply just getting out in nature, being in the moment, observing nature, taking some pictures, doing a walk and talk like this with the camcorder thing and all that, and it just can't really recommend it more. So getting to the topics today, I'm kind of being random and might be a bit all over the place, but I mean. So I guess it's going to be sort of have a main focus on now. Actually, before we start, I'm just going to kind of have a moment here, and I recommend you do too. To center yourself, ground yourself, just get inside your body, just breathe, pay attention to your breathing, and sometimes I just get a little bit too wrapped up in my head, and I'm sort of missing the beauty and miraculous wonder of this that's all around me. And it's just right there in front of our nose, and yet we can get so stuck in our heads and just miss it. So, like when you listen to an audiobook or a YouTube discussion or music or anything, it's always a good idea to just get into your body, pay attention to your periphery, and just your breathing, and get really out of your head, because some of today's topic is going to be a lot about that, like sort of the intellect versus the heart, reason and philosophizing, or I hope that's a word, philosophizing, being philosophical. Going back and forth in your mind about this and that, just analyzing things, and okay, so the topic is really about getting down to what is really real. Things I believe I've discussed before in some videos I'm putting up on YouTube now, but also getting more philosophical about like sort of how the intellect can really get in the way of the truth. And now, sort of as a foundation to all of this, one of my big arguments is you could say that See, I'm just trying to get the camera right to focus. We don't want to get this to street, so we definitely want to try to get the nature for you. It is really that the only thing that's real is within us. Because if you think about it, everything outside of yourself is really a mirror of you. So, in I guess you could say a quantum metaphysical sense, there is no way to be really knowing from the outside of you what exactly it's like outside of you. There's no way to be like an outside observer. And really from an experiential point of view, just know it's just, you can't get outside yourself is the bottom line. Hi, how you doing? This guy's dog coming after me a little bit. Seemed nice enough though, so. I have a little issue with dogs because one time I got bit by one walking down the street, so I actually got chased by a dog when I was very young. How you doing? There's some people walking by, so. See, this is the beauty of just doing something in the moment and not have it be all scripted. And yeah, it's a little random, and I might kind of walk around my words a bit and not be so concise or clear. But I think there's sort of meaning in the gaps. There's meaning in the silence between words, and just the authenticity of the spoken word coming from a place inside myself that's authentic as possible. If you will, it's like I'm really projecting, peeling the layers of the onion from myself, and you just get to hear it in live time. And there might be a certain frequency or vibration to my voice that comes through that just has really like a truth frequency to it, if you will, and I just hope it comes through and people get inspired from it. I mean, the world is changing a lot. We're going through a lot of dark times, and we need authenticity and inspiration now more than ever. So I'm going to deliver the goods as best I can. So getting back to really this concept of what is real and how it's really can only be found really inside ourselves, and it's really outside of the intellect. It's like we can reason and philosophize, wax poetic about it all day, and write about it, talk about it, debate about it, even argue about it, get on this side or that side, get even trapped in it, and but it's like here's a good, I guess, analogy you could say for it is if a human being was born in the wilderness, never ever had any influence from society conditioning, from like the education system, from learning from sort of the language and all these, you could say, constructs. Like now that human would simply be operating by means of perception, observation, instinctual reflexes. You could say an intuitive knowingness about things, a gut instinct, and I want to say an intrinsic you know, knowingness about what it, you know, without the concepts of morals or having a conscience, simply just having an intrinsic, natural, reflexive understanding that is really outside of the mind. Meaning, if that person saw a human and his or her instinct was telling him that that person seems safe and trustworthy, which is again outside the mind, simply more from the heart center or just the solar plexus, if you will. They just feel, they can kind of know what's really dangerous or something, and like that human being would have, even though they're out in the wilderness, they're not going to be like a wild cat or something, or some wild animal like a wolf or something that might potentially attack the human. I think they'd be curious, but I believe that humans are generally born good, like, outside of their conditioning. And this is to a lot of people going to sound like common sense. Look it up on the internet. And I believe there was even maybe a boy that was known to have grew up that way, and he was studied and stuff. And I think they might even talk about like how he just seemed to have like an innate moral compass. You know, he didn't need to understand it by words or intellectualize it, because he never learned that. It's just, he was more animalistic, if you will, as a human. But it's just interesting to kind of throw in the conversation, because I think the more that we can be that way in a lot of ways, with different things, the better. So, and then if you carry that over to, let's say, a male and female, well, let's say, I don't know, they're 20 years old, according to our understanding of age, they meet, but they were born in the wild. They have no concept of words or language in that regard. They might use their own forms of natural language, if you will, just to understand each other. But they're not gonna talk. So if you think about it, that feels like, to me, the truest, like it's the truth. Like that communication they're having outside of words is what is true. But we bring in our ego, our judgments, our projections, our intellectual understandings of things, about anything. We bring in our conditioning from society, our potential corruption, and so forth and so on. And you can see how this is going to heavily get in the way, in every way, shape, and form, whether, by yourself or with others, your interaction with others, by yourself, and how this is going to heavily get in the way of good things happening between people. So I think it sounds sort of like common sense, but a lot of people just don't think about it that way. They're sort of on autopilot with their conditioning, and they never really get consciously aware enough of what's really going on inside themselves. And it also, a lot of it comes to duality of the ego, the back and forth between this side versus that side, inside your mind, if you will. And I think a lot of that's coming from, some of it could be coming from the reptilian brain versus maybe some other part of the brain that gets sort of projected in our mind as like that inner voice of, it's like the one side says to do this, the other side, the conscience says, but no, well, what that might be a bad thing to do or not right or something. And it's sort of easy to philosophize also about what is right or wrong. I think, again, it's intrinsic. So if something feels wrong to you outside of the duality of your ego, then I would say it's automatically false. It's like the ability to detect truth versus falsehood. There's actually a book that comes to mind that you might want to read. I personally haven't read it yet, but I've heard it. And it's just a book that comes to mind that's maybe about the subject to some degree. It gets very philosophical, but spiritual, sort of, into a more enlightened view about truth versus falsehood. But I want to say it's called Truth versus Falsehood, I think, by David Hawkins. I'll say that's really worth reading if you want, like, you could say high calibrated sort of truth frequency wisdom in a book about things along these lines. I'm gonna have to put that on my list, whether audio book or read it. But I just remember years ago, at some point, just hearing about that book. And so, anyway, so now whether it's in that case I talk about, where it's about a relationship, let's say the 20-year-olds I talk about, or now what's switched them with 20-year-olds that have, they have all the typical conditioning from society, they know language, they et cetera, et cetera. Well, now you can see where that can really block maybe a relationship happening. Maybe they project onto the other person, maybe the person said this and automatically it's a deal breaker, or this thing or that thing, or it's their age, or it's their fill in the blank, and all of a sudden, whoa, it's like, whoa, what happened here? What could have been a beautiful thing has been completely, basically destroyed and distorted by what? Just a quick little judgment or a deal breaker that in the end is really, not really all that sound, or seems really unfair or really judgmental, let's say. There's lots of things that get in the way on obviously on a conceptual level, between relationships, between friends, family, even in ourselves, obviously, because if we're doing it to ourselves, we're going to do it to others. We're going to project that out onto others. You're going to do unto others as you do to yourself, you could say. So, sort of like I think of that saying, do unto others as you want done to yourself. And that sort of goes a little bit hand in hand with all this, but that's sort of a way to look at it is, now with society, number one, on a very important level, which involves relationships, like romantic relationships, then just think about all that. What do you really, let's see, one of the big things with society is I think maybe it's more prevalent in the United States, but a lot of people have a sense of, a sense of distorted entitlement that's really unrealistic, and a sense of, like, they want their cake and eat it too, or they, people can live in their solipsistic world, which to them, everyone and everything outside. See, again, as I say, there's no outside themselves, but everything they think is outside themselves really is irrelevant. It's really just what's in their own selfish interest, and just this inflated sense of self-entitlement, and it just, let's say a woman who's like that, and a guy who isn't so much. So think about that dynamic and how that guy's going to be easily turned off by a woman who's like that, and because that's sort of totally interfering with integrity, morals, ethics, having a conscience, a good internal moral compass, knowing right from wrong, in the true sense, in the intrinsic sense, not just the conceptual sense, because that's really, I could talk about that a lot, but I mean, in other words, if someone would like someone, if they didn't know everything about them, like in other words, let's say a guy goes up to a girl, and she doesn't know his age, she doesn't know what he's doing for a career, she doesn't know how much money he makes, she doesn't know any of these kind of things, she doesn't really know anything conceptually about him except for a little bit. Let's say they say, hi, hello, how are you, and you just seem interesting, so I just thought we should talk, and they just have a brief conversation, but they don't talk about these kind of things. And well, you could say that girl is basing her impression of that man in a truthful way. She's not letting. People are not going to be a complete open book in the beginning when they get to know someone. You're not going to know everything conceptually about someone, obviously. It's not like they walk up to you with their age on their shirt and like a book about themselves that you're going to read first and take 2 days to read, and then say, okay, now I know everything about you. Now I'm going to decide if I'm going to give you my phone number and go out with you, etc., etc. So with that said, then what are we doing? For the most part, unless someone says or acts a certain way that really turns us off, which you might really be losing out on an opportunity when you do that. If the person really was a good person with good intentions, is we're really just we're operating from that truth frequency about someone, and we're going really by that sort of primitive sort of model that really is open, and it's sort of like open arms that just allow something to be as it is without like really projecting this really, like you could say, like a narcissistic, really like bad attitude on that someone, or like such a judgmental, self-entitled, like desert, like sense of entitlement that, oh my God, this person is just is not your exact favorite height. They're not your exact favorite weight. They're a little bit older than you would like, or a little bit younger than you would like, or they're fill in the blank. There's so many things. And then you project all these distorted, scenarios that, in other words, people ultimately are to be trusted on their actions than their words, because words are so fleeting. They're so distorted so much of the time. They're so full of cognitive dissonance and duality traps. And duality of the ego, it's this side, it's that side, and before long, it's like you just got yourself all wound up, and it no longer even has to do with another person. It's all about you, and you're just projecting. You're pointing the finger when the finger really has to be pointed back at you. So many things. People really deserve, more than that. And if you're doing that, then what does it all go back to? Meditating. Deep dive meditation list on my Spotify. Doing inner child work. There's an inner child kind of work you can do by Stephen Halpern in that list. And under Daniel Diamond you can find it. And just follow me on there, and it's probably, it could be literally the best meditation list that's on there, and you can't go wrong. It's instead of going to, now go to your therapist. If you have a therapist, go to one. I'm not a medical doctor, so you do what you feel like you need to do, but I'm saying that it's, you're going inside yourself, you're taking responsibility, you're not trying to get help outside yourself from someone's words or just talking it out, and talk therapy, and that has its place for some people, sure, or relying on a pill. And again, I'm not going to advise anyone get off medication. I'm not here to do that. You just do what you need to do, and there's lots of natural things you can take in place of drugs and prescription medications for psychological conditions and what have you. Anxiety is a common one. There's lots of herbs you can take to calm down. So meditating works well, breathing exercises. Um, so, you know, it's just people project, and they're sort of even their own worst enemy, like they're a victim of uh, of their own projections and their own distortions and their blind spots. And wow, just what a headache, right? I mean, it feels like relationships these days have gotten like tied up in knots of falsehood in most cases. And no offense to anyone, but I mean, you know, you're probably not going to disagree with me. You're going to find, well, I was right. I mean, I argue with my significant other a lot, or I'm having problems just finding a date, or it's the virus right now and I'm not even going out on dates, but I'm lonely and I'm frustrated, and maybe I talk to some people online, but it doesn't go anywhere, etc. And everyone's sort of more upset these days. And I mean, you know, learn to love and accept yourself, not in a narcissistic way, but just, you know, learn to be, you know, best friends with yourself and love yourself and accept yourself. You know, you're going to be spending more company with yourself than anybody else. So you know, you come first. Again, not in a narcissistic, egotistical like way where you're going to put yourself on a pedestal, but just you come first. And it's okay to be a little selfish, but, you know, give to the world too. And